Baruch Hashem and Baruch Haba. Welcome to our advanced studies here at Congregation Mashiach Yisrael. My name is Scott Siskin, and tonight we're going to be studying our beloved Tanya, chapter 18. Mi yiftach otana b'tefila uvracha. Who would like to open us in prayer and a blessing? I suppose I could, actually. Rabbona Shalom, you are awesome, and we love you, and we are in awe and at the glory and the majesty and the intricacy of your word, of your Torah, your Mashiach, and what it means for our lives. We ask for your presence here tonight as we study your word, that you should bless us with Chochmah Bina and especially Da'at, that we should integrate this information to us, whatever level that you see fit for us in our walk, in our faith, our lives, and we should be able to more clearly articulate and understand your will for us and for those around us in our lives. We thank you again for your precious holy works and the precious people, the holy rabbis like the Alter Rebbe here, who enables us to be able to learn it through their writings. And again, we just thank you for everything that you are and everything that you do for us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
So tonight we're in chapter 18.
Thank you very much.
Baruch Hashem.
That was great prayer.
For those who are interested, as a little plug for maybe our next class that we're going to do, our class on prayer, Moshe Rabbeinu in Deuteronomy told us how to pray. And if you have that format in your mind, it's very easy to formulate something quick. Praise, supplication, thanksgiving, and you're done. So stay tuned for our next study whenever that comes along. In the meantime, however, let's get back to Tanya. We ended a section last week. Do we remember what that section was called that we ended last week? Chapters 9 through 17 represented a unit of sorts.
What was it called? It was, hang on, let's see. The War Between the Souls.
Shkoyach. Torah point for you. The war between the souls. In the first section, we learned about who we are, what the world is, how God relates to us in this world a little bit. And then in the second section, we learned about how those forces, our animal soul, the part that keeps us alive, our godly soul, the part that connects us to God, and the klipot, the world itself, how all these forces interact and what it looks like for us. Again, the Alter Rebbe trying to explain this very important question. What really is a Beinani? Likutei Amar in the first book of Tanya here, being Sefer Shel Beinani, the book of the intermediate. What does it mean to be an intermediate? We discovered and learned after several chapters, it doesn't mean it's a person with half sins, half mitzvahs. Chas v'sholom. It's a lot more complex than that. And by studying the war between the souls, right, the animal soul and the godly soul, they both want control over the body of a small city here. By understanding that fight, we can win, right? And that means doing mitzvahs. Last week, as I said, we concluded looking at the verse that the Alter Rebbe began Tanya in, that very special verse. Remember what that is?
It's near to us.
Deuteronomy 30:14. Ki korav elecha hadover ma'od. This thing is very near to you. Torah and mitzvah is very near to you. Beficha, in your mouth. Ulavavcha, and in your heart. La'asoto, to do. And we spent some time last week discussing the Torah is written without commas or punctuation of any kind. So when you go through that, it sounds as if you would say, this thing's very near to you, it's in your mouth, and it's in your heart, therefore go do it, right? Mm-hmm. When in reality, the Alter Rebbe said, nah, there's really no comma after in your heart. It's in your mouth, and it's in your heart enough to get it done, is really what the verse is saying to us. And that's kind of where we came to last week in chapter 17. Chapter 18 here is going to begin our new section, revealing the hidden love within the heart of every Jew. We have briefly mentioned this hidden love. That's an inheritance from our patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what it means, we've just kind of cursorily mentioned it a couple of times through our studies in Tanya thus far. And this next section is going to very more clearly identify that hidden love, this ahavat mesuteret, this hidden love, the pinta l'yid, the spark of the Jew, and more importantly, how to reveal it. Okay, so it's there as an inheritance, but if you don't know you have $1 million in the bank, how is that helping you, right? You need to be able to know that it's there and access it, and that's this new section 18 through 25. To begin this section, the Alter Rebbe is picking right up where he left off at the end of 17, We spoke last week about the very important letter Lamed at the end of that verse, 30:14. This thing is very near you, in your mouth, in your heart, to do it. It's in your heart enough to do it. Can we say a word or two on that before we jump in? Because it's an important understanding. How does that work? I don't feel a rapturous love for God. I don't feel a fear or an awe for God at all. Sorry. But that said, I can still acquire love and fear enough for God to be happy, enough to do the mitzvahs. How did we say that happened?
I believe I've got a note here, and it reads this way. With the heart, the mind can be controlled.
You can do whatever your mind says.
Direct would be a good word, and we can do it.
That's the secret weapon of the Beinoni.
It's boiling down to mind over matter.
Mind over matter, absolutely right. Good Torah point. So the idea is that no matter what we feel, we can choose to do something else, right? I feel like I really don't want to get up and go to work. However, I choose to get it done, right? Or whatever your example is. What does that require? Very important understanding to move forward. What do you need to be that level of Beinoni? That's a high level Beinoni, by the way. I don't feel it. I'm miserable about it, yet I do God's mitzvahs anyways. This is a holy individual. What do you need? Minimum bare requirements to be able to do mind over matter, the secret weapon of the Beinoni. What do you need? What are your prereqs?
Fear of God and love of God.
Okay, we talked about awakening that, revealing that, but you don't start with that.
A broken and a contrite heart.
That deals more with teshuvah, really.
Mm-hmm.
The Alter Rebbe said very clearly, what do you need? You need to be a cognitively normal, functioning individual. You need to have a brain in your head, right? So long as you are a normal person, your head is above your heart, and you can do it, right? In order for you to do that, you need to meditate on God's greatness, right? You think, oh, God is big, and therefore he can give me stuff, and I'm afraid of him, okay? Very, very, very basic. But you need to be able to meditate about that thought, right? If you don't have the power to control your mind, mind over matter won't work, right? What about anything else? You also need background, right? If you want to do mind over matter and think about God, and that's going to develop a love and fear enough to do the mitzvahs, then you need to have the background that God is, that God exists, right? You need to know that he cares about the stuff that you do. You need to know that he wants you to keep kosher if you're a Jew, or that he wants you not to steal if you're anybody, right? You need to know these things in order to be able to make this functionality. You also need the time to be able to do it, and you need to take the time to do it. If you don't spend time thinking about God, how do you think you're going to develop this love and fear? You're going to develop a love and fear, as Rabbi Gordon says, for whatever it is that you want. You know, if you watch movies every day, you're going to grow up and be a movie critic. If you think about God every day, you're going to be a chassid, you're going to be a good yid. So, 4 requirements for mind over matter. 1, you need to be a regular, intellectually cognitive individual who can think. You need to be able to think whatever you choose, whatever you want. 2, you need to know certain things. You need to have a little bit of background. 3, you need to engage in it. You need to allocate the time for it. And of course, D then, you need to actually have the time to be able to spend doing it, right? So that's what you need to accomplish this revelation of the love and fear that's within you through contemplation, through meditation. This is the secret weapon of the Beinoni. The Alter Rebbe is going to pick up here, and I'm sorry for the long introduction, but he's going to pick up in chapter 18, saying, what if you don't have some of those pieces? One of those pieces, all of those pieces. What if you don't have it? Does that mean Moshe wasn't speaking to you? Chas v'sholom, the Torah speaks to all of us in every generation. So what about this other individual who can't think, or doesn't have the time, or won't spend the time, or doesn't have the right background, right? That's where 18 is going to pick up. And the Alter Rebbe is going to look back at our verse, 30:14, saying, Kikar v'lecha hadover ma'od, what is this word ma'od? Very. This thing is very near to you, in your mouth and your heart that you should do it. What does very mean in this sentence? The Torah, there's nothing superfluous in the Torah. Every word, every letter is so exact. So it's not going to waste extra letters here unless it's important. So that's where the Alter Rebbe is going to begin chapter 18. With that as an introduction, would anyone like to begin reading? Okie dokie.
To explain more adequately and more precisely the word very in the verse, for this thing is very new to you.
Speak up a little bit.
Should be recognized with certainty that even the person whose understanding and the knowledge of God is limited and who has no heart to comprehend the greatness of the Ein Sof, blessed be He, to produce therefore awe and love of God, even if in his mind and understanding alone.
And that's what we said before. When you're just to think it, right? You can't say that I'm shaking and sweating with love for God. You can say that I know that I should. And that's the mind over matter. That's enough. That you've accomplished greatly at that point. But what if you can't?
It is a very near thing for him to observe and practice all the commandments of the Torah and the study of Torah which counterbalances them out. In his very mouth and heart, from the depths of his heart, in true sincerity with fear and love, namely the hidden love in the heart of all Jews, which is an inheritance to us from our patriarchs.
So the Alter Rebbe is putting a big sign on it and saying this is it. This is the Ahava Mesuteret, Ahavat Mesuteret, the hidden love, which is the spark, the essence, the essential bit of every Jew, right? Where do the Jews get this very special hidden love and fear? And as we're going to talk, the hidden love includes fear. Where do they get it from? Where do us Jews get this hidden love from? It's an inheritance from the patriarchs. And interestingly enough, this week's Torah portion is Balak, where we talk about Bilam, the evil prophet, the Gentile prophet. He wasn't evil because he was a Gentile. He was evil because he was greedy and arrogant. But it's interesting, over and over and over in this portion where you see people trying to attack the Jews, over and over, it's hidden, it's blatant. It references the patriarchs. You know, what happened with this set of three tzaddikim, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that made the Jewish people who they are today. It's very real and powerful energy, and if you know that it's there, you can tap into it. And just as a little bit more here, studying a little bit with Rabbi Gordon earlier today, and he had said, if you want to acquire something, there's 3 ways you can do it, assuming you don't steal it, right? There's 3 ways you can legally acquire something. One is through a gift. Somebody can give it to you. So another is through a sale. You could buy it. And the third is to inherit, right? If you want to get a gift from somebody, they need to like you enough to give it to you for some reason. If you want to buy it, you need to have the funds or the trading materials to be able to get it. If you inherit something, you don't even have to be anything. You could just be a day old, and you can inherit whatever's coming down the line, right? And that's how we get this hidden love from the patriarchs. So who are the patriarchs? How does this work?
However, we must first of all preface a clear and precise explanation of the origin of the essence of this love, how it became an inheritance, and how awe is also incorporated in it. The explanation is as follows. The patriarchs were the truly chariot of God, and therefore they merited the blessing of transmitting to their descendants, coming after them forever, a nefesh, ruach, and neshama from the 10 holy sephirot of the 4 worlds of Atzilut, Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya, to each according to his station and according to his works.
Okay.
Even the most worth.
So before we get too crazy here, let's go back to chariot. What does it mean to be a chariot? How were the patriarchs a chariot to God? A chariot has no will of its own, right? A chariot doesn't move by itself. As Rabbi Gordon said, if your car has a will of its own, you must see your mechanic immediately. That's not good, right? So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they had no intention of their own. They had no agenda of their own, right? These are holy men who were just in God consciousness all day, every day for all of their lives. There's a lot to be said about that. We're going to hit it over and over, so I don't really want to beat the point now. But because these 3 holy men were true chariots to God, true 100% tzaddikim, right? We talked earlier about a tzaddik gomer, a perfect tzaddik. Because they had this going for them, because they were so beloved by God, they merited, and God blessed them with this special naran, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, that gets passed down to their descendants, which isn't the case with every different human. This is the case for Jewish people, okay? The nefesh, ruach, and neshama from Jewish people comes from the 10 holy sphirot, from the 4 different worlds, which we spoke of last week and the week before, of Atzilut, Beriah, Yetzirah, and Asiya. So hopefully you can see that pretty okay. And this image is going to be important for us as we move on because it's going to get complex relatively quickly. So first I just want to explain the concept, and then we'll read it. Or should we read it and then explain the concept, then read it again? Let's do that. You want me to take over here for a second?
I don't care if you want to. You can.
Sure. That way I know when to stop. So we have this Naran, this Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, these three pieces of our souls. What's the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama again? Can we get a quick one-liner on that?
3 levels of our soul.
Right. What do they do?
What do? They vivify the body.
That's the Nefesh. It energizes the body. I like that. Vivify. That's nice. Lets you move, right? To do that.
And then also the soul.
The Ruach is the spirit. That energizes our emotions. And then the Neshama, which also means soul, that energizes our intellect.
Intellect, okay.
So these three pieces of what makes a person, really. In the Jewish case of the spectrum, it comes from all the side of holiness as an inheritance from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God's blessing to them. So, I guess let's just read for a second here. So they get the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama from the 10 holy sphirot of the 4 worlds of Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya, the world of emanation, the world of creation, the world of formation, the world of action, to each according to his station and according to his works. So we spoke before about this concept of individual, like where is the roadmap of your soul, right? Where's your spiritual address on high? Moshe Rabbeinu, for example, he was a Chochmah of Atzilut, right? He was this high level soul with great understanding and wisdom and all kinds of stuff. And then you could have more lowly people. Malchut of Asiya would be all the way down here. Wherever your soul is rooted, that's to the extent that you have, that is the extent to which you have this Yiddish Neshama, this Ahavat Mesuter, this hidden love. And it's universal, right? As we said, this is an inheritance. It's not something that you earn, so it's above wisdom. It's higher than logic. Even the most worthless of worthless men and the sinners of Israel itself are thus endowed at the time of marital union with, at any rate, a nefesh of a nefesh of Malchut of Asiya, which is royalty in our world here. Yep, so maybe your chart will help. We're going to read it, we're going to look at it, and we're going to go back and read it again.
Okay, a nefesh of Malchut di Asiya, royalty in the world.
Right, in Aramaic, if you have
this is really the lowest grade of holiness, though.
Right, this is as low as it can go, but it's still holiness, right? It doesn't come from the unholy side in a Jewish person. And for your understanding, if you like, the D apostrophe, if you have a daled with a shavah as a prefix to your word in Aramaic, it's the same as putting a b in front with Hebrew, okay? It means of.
Over in, okay.
Over in, sure. All right. This is the lowest grade of holiness in the world of Asiya. Nevertheless, since the latter is of the 10 holy sphirot, it is compounded of them all. We might know this most clearly from counting the Omer, right? Chesed, Sheba, Gevura, and all that stuff.
Okay.
Nevertheless, since the latter is of the 10 holy sphirot, it's compounded of them all, including Chochmah Da'asiya, wisdom of the world of action, wherein is enclosed Chochmah de Malchut de Atzilut, wisdom from Atzilut as it is enclosed within Malchut of the highest world, Atzilut, the world of emanation, incorporating Chochmah of Atzilut, wisdom of the world of emanation, this is the highest rung we got now, which is illuminated by the actual light of the Ein Sof, the Holy One, blessed be He, as it's written, Hashem has founded the earth with wisdom, right? And you have made them all with wisdom. That's Proverbs 3 and Psalm 104. Let's stop there and discuss. Okay, so we have our handy-dandy chart here. What is it saying? It's saying, let's say you have a soul of a not lofty person, right? A soul of an earthy person, a soul of someone who is simple, even possibly sinful, right? In the lowest echelon of society. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew, it doesn't matter. If you're a Jew, then you have this, and you're at the lowest rung, Malchut of a Nefesh, of Asiya, all this low stuff. How does Malchut of Asiya get there? Malchut has nothing that it's not given from Yesod, right? Yesod channels and the functionality of all the 10 sphirot, right? Here's my sloppy sphirot page, sorry about that. But excuse me. Malchut, dignity, royalty down here, sovereignty, gets everything from the entire package, right? Where does the entire package start? Chokhmah. So within Malchut of Asiya is the energy of Chokhmah of Asiya, right? In Malchut of Asiya, that comes from Keter, right? The higher level, which is Malchut of the previous world. And that all comes originally from Malchut of Atzilut, right? You just trace it all the way back up. That's why I think it's helpful to put the Sefirot on this chart of the four worlds. Mm-hmm. Where does Malchut of Atzilut get its good stuff from?
Chokhmah.
It all comes from Chokhmah. You made the whole earth with wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. And where does Chokhmah of Atzilut get its energy from?
Ein Sof.
The Ein Sof, the Holy One, blessed be He, God's infinite light, right? So even in the lowest place, right? God's holy energy trickles down all the way there, and any Jew is a Jew is a Jew. It doesn't matter how sinful they are. They still have this potential of holiness, this hidden love, as an inheritance from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by the blessing of God, right? So I'll go to read through that once. Should we read through that once more, or do you think you got it?
I've got a pretty good handle.
I got it.
All right. Mm-hmm. Our viewers online can rewind if you like. So moving forward, thus it comes to pass that the Ein Sof, the infinite one, Yisbarach, blessed be He, is garbed, is clothed, as it were, in the wisdom of the human soul, of whatever sort of Jew he may be. All right. In turn, the soul's faculty of wisdom, together with a lot of the Ein Sof, Yisbarach, blessed be He, together with God's light, may He be blessed, that is vested within it, spreads throughout the entire soul, animating it from head to foot, so to speak, as it is written, wisdom gives life to those who have it, right? God made everything with wisdom, which is why God is everywhere at all times, because the evidence of God's wisdom is all over the place, right? The Alter Rebbe brings a note here. Do we have questions, thoughts on that? We're a little bit in the heavens here. We can bring it back down to earth if you like. Got something on your mind?
No, it is lofty, but I'm pretty much as
much as we can for right now.
As much as I'm given and able to.
Hey, there you go. You get it. That works. So, let's examine this concept of Chokhmah a little bit closer. Before we get there, the Alter Rebbe has a note for us. In the parentheses here, at times, even the sinners of Israel may even bring down very lofty souls, which had been in the depths of the Klipot, as is explained in Sefer Gilgulim, a book. So, just because you have parents maybe who were very sinful, I'm going to look over here for that. Just because you have maybe, parents who are righteous or parents that are maybe not so much, that does not mean at all that your children are going to be righteous or wicked. Again, that's in free choice. The fear of heaven is up to us. Whether you're tall or short, that comes from outside of your control, right? So there are even ways that you could get a great high-level person from a very lowly circumstance. Can we think of anything in history like this?
Well, yeah.
Abraham.
Look at Abraham's dad. He was an idol worshiper.
And Terah. There's several examples of some very good kings.
Sure.
Josiah comes to mind.
Right. He hid the ark.
Descending from a very wicked.
Right, and that's a good example to bring up because it's interesting. Then the sages comment on that. How do you have a righteous wicked when it comes to this king over and over? I mean, Tzidkiyahu was really, really righteous. They thought he could have been, but who came after him? It was just way worse than anything you could have imagined. And then all of a sudden it's nice again with Yoshiao, and then all of a sudden it's terrible again with Menashe, and it's like, how does this happen? So that's a mystery, and if you're interested, you could go ahead and look at that. But another example I was thinking of is Rabbi Akiva, right?
Okay.
His parents were converts. They were Gentiles when they were born, right? They converted to Judaism. They abandoned it, right? They were not observant. They weren't practicing. They had a son who's technically a Jew, and he gets this incredibly lofty soul where they say that Moshe was amazed by the way that Rabbi Akiva taught, which is a conversation for another time. Mm-hmm. So you'll see this kind of a thing. All right, not beating the dead horse. Kosher, of course. So let's hone in again on this concept of Chokhmah. Why is wisdom what we look at when we try to see God in the Jew? Okay? Now, Chokhmah Chokhmah means wisdom. A chacham is a wise person. Is not wisdom as we understand it in America. In America, when we say someone's wise, we're really talking about bina. We're really talking about understanding. This person can understand a lot. He's got a lot of good intellectual faculties that allow him to, compute stuff and calculate stuff, and God bless him, right? In reality, what chokhmah is, as it's understood in Hebrew, is more closely understood in America as like inspiration. It's the source from which this developmental understanding process comes. And that's what the Alter Rebbe says here. Now, chokhmah, wisdom, is the source of intelligence and comprehension, as it is above bina, which is understanding, which is intellectual understanding and comprehension, right? For bina to understand, bina means understanding, for bina to function and understanding to function, you need a subject matter to contemplate, right? If I say elephant, right? Now I can think about an elephant. I'm thinking about the ears and the trunk and the gray and the huge, right? But if I didn't say anything before, then you weren't understanding that, right? You needed that drop of inspiration, right? You needed that spark to ignite the fuel, which is bina. Does that make sense? Another good imagery here is the sperm in an egg, right? A little spark of something, and the sperm cell is like the smallest cell in the body, or like one of those most absolutely small cells, and the egg cell is one of the largest cells in the body that's mobile and stuff. Because that's giving the wisdom length and breadth, right? Developing it into something functional and standalone. Once it's standalone, that's da'at, right? All right. So chokhmah is the source of intelligence, which is above bina, which is intellectual understanding and comprehension, whereas chokhmah is above them and their source, like we said. Okay. So the Alter Rebbe says, note the etymological composition of the word chokhmah. Chokhmah, our sages say, breaks down to two words, koach ma. Koach ma. What does koach mean? We say yasher koach, or we say shkoyach. What does that mean? Strength, right? Yasher koach means may your strength propel you forward.
Shkoyach is strength?
Shkoyach means like... Shkoyach's a long story. It originally started yasher kochacha, which is difficult to say. So then it kind of turned into yasher koach, and then, the Ashkenazi got there, and it's shkoyach now. So shkoyach means...
Is this Yiddish?
Well, it's got a Hebrew source.
No.
But it basically means bravo. Yasher kochacha means may your strength propel you forward. So koach is strength, right? The other word here, koach ma. What is ma? Get it? What is ma? Ma is what? Ma in Hebrew means what, right? We say ma nishtana. Why is this night different from all other nights? We say ma shlomcha. How is your peace? What's up, brother? Right?
What's why?
Ma means a how. It means why. It can often mean. We'll leave it at that for now. This isn't a Hebrew class. So koach ma is
but he is breaking it down.
it's a factor. We should all know biblical Hebrew. Koach ma means the power of what. I really like the way that this book, the text that we have here, translates it. It says the potentiality of what is, right? So this is a great way to understand it. Koach ma, let's say that means potential, okay? What is the power of potential? Can potential stand alone? Can potential stand up and say, look at how I am? I am potential. Right? Does that work? Pride does that. No, love could do that, right? Look at how much I love. Look at how much I give. Look at how strong I am.
He's saying that really it needs to go on and be comprehended, understood, and grasped intellectually.
Right. It's not anything in and of itself. Chokhmah, which we'll call here loosely potential, can't stand on its own. Because it can't stand on its own, it's totally not arrogant, and therefore God can be revealed there, right? Again, it's a bit of hashgacha pratis, a little divine providence that this week's portion we're studying now is Balak, which talks about Bilam, who he was so full of himself he could speak to God directly, almost like Moshe, right? Mm-hmm. Yet he couldn't see the angel 2 feet in front of his donkey.
Yeah, and it says several times God came to him.
Right, exactly right. So Bilam's all proud of himself and his ability and his communication skills and this, that, and the other. Yet, because he's so of himself, he can't see the spiritual reality that's right in front of him, right? It's like
But his
poetic.
donkey could.
But the donkey could, right. Exactly right. So, because potential can't stand up, it says, where is God revealed? Wherever he's allowed to enter. Right? When we stand up, God is not standing. Right? When we're sitting, God is standing. So if we want God to be present in our lives, we need to be less present in our lives. We need to be less arrogant. It needs to be less about us and more about him. And this is a message you've heard 100 times, right? So let's just go ahead and reread this sentence. Note the tough sentence. The etymological composition of the word chokhmah, koachma, the potentiality of what is, that which is not yet comprehended and understood or grasped intellectually. So an example of this would be like Einstein's theory, right? You learn as a kid, E equals mc squared, and it doesn't mean anything to you because you don't know what E is, and you don't know what C is, and you certainly don't know what M is, right? Even though M is the easiest piece of that equation. Maybe. So, that said, I get that it's lofty, but I can't internalize it, right? That's chokhmah. It's a spark of godliness. It's a spark of an idea, if you want to bring it down to our lower level, that is not yet developed, not yet understood, right? You didn't pore over it yet. It's still just a dot. It has not been given length and breadth. Consequently, there is vested in it, in chokhmah, the light of the Ein Sof, the light of God, the infinite light of God, Yisbarach, blessed be He, God can in no way be comprehended by any thought. So because chokhmah is at a level that's above understanding, right? That's where God can be revealed, right? Because God, faith, is supra-logical, supra-rational, right? Above logic. Faith in God is beyond logic. It's not illogical. It's higher than it. It's the source of logic, right?
This is insulting.
Yeah.
Who can in no way be comprehended by any thought, hence all Jews, even the women and the illiterate, believe in God.
Let's hear that. Let's hit that hard then. So the text here says, because God is revealed in chokhmah, and chokhmah is above understanding, therefore anybody can access it. And the Alter Rebbe here brings the concept of women and the illiterate. The idea here, why are we saying women? Look at when this was written and look at the sources which the Alter Rebbe was pulling from. Typically back in the day, you didn't see a lot of educated women, right? That's wrong. That's a tragedy, right? The Alter Rebbe himself made sure that his mother, his wife, his daughters were Torah scholars and advocated and promulgated the higher education of women, as does Chabad to this day, right? That said, you'll open any history book, you know this wasn't always the case, right? So what he's trying to say here is because it's above logic, you don't need to be a scholar to access this hidden love, which is in everybody, because it comes from a place higher than understanding. That's the point. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see here. All of us can believe in God, since faith, like we just said, is beyond understanding and comprehension. And I love the note here. Where knowledge ends, faith begins. Right? That which we have the ability to understand, we should. If God says don't steal because it's going to make the economy bad and it's going to make society horrible, I can understand it. That's great. Do I obey the mitzvah don't steal because I understand it? No, I obey the mitzvah because God told me to do it, right? Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with my understanding. Faith comes from a place higher than understanding. For the simple believe everything, while the prudent man understands, right? That's a verse from Proverbs 14. But with regard to the Holy One, blessed be He, who is beyond intelligence and knowledge, and who can in no way be comprehended by any thought. The nature of God is that creation does not understand Him, cannot understand Him. All men are like fools in His presence, Yisbarach, blessed be He. As King David said, I was a boor, and I did not understand. Like an animal was I with you, yet I was always with you.
That's a psalm of Asaph.
Asaph?
Is Psalm 73.
Psalm 73? Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Make sure you catch me on stuff like that, because I can be, that's not good. So, when you look at this narrative in the Psalms that's saying, I was like a boar with you, the psalmist is comparing himself to God and saying, I understand you about as well as, what was Rabbi Gordon's example, as well as a cow understands Aristotle, right? Not at all. But because I don't understand God, does that mean I have less faith in him? On the contrary, it's I have more faith now, right? Because I can see a higher reality which I'm not capable of dealing with.
And this boar he's referring to a type of a wild pig.
Yeah, not even just a lack of understanding, but actually something that's unclean, right? Because I was a boar and an animal, I was always with you. And, as dog lovers, you see some of this canine theology out there. Some of it's good, some of it's not. But the concept is, there's a relationship between us and God, which we need to take a reality check here. And we're not going to be able to understand him even a little bit, really, compared to everything that he is. And even trying to is something of an insult. However, God said in his Torah, you should ask questions and get answers to questions, and you should try to understand God as best you can. This brings him great glory. This is glorifying to God. Don't think that you're going to be able to do it, though. Therefore, even the most worthless of worthless and the transgressors of the Israelites, chas v'sholem, in the majority of cases, sacrifice their lives for the sanctity of God's name and suffer harsh torture, rather than to deny the one God, although they be boors and illiterate and ignorant of God's greatness, etc., etc. This is the essence of the hidden love, right? And this is what the Alter Rebbe is going to be building up to. Again, this section goes till chapter 25. And the Alter Rebbe is saying here, when in chapter 17 we said, if you can meditate on God's greatness and know that you should do mitzvahs now, this is a wonderful thing. This awards you a high place in heaven, right? This lets you go up to Berea, as we're going to learn later, right? The higher Garden of Eden with Moshe and Abraham and all of this greatness, just because you knew in your head enough to think about God and to do whatever he said, right? That gets you here. What if you didn't? And you didn't know, or you didn't take the time to know, you didn't, take the time to contemplate. You just serve God with this hidden love, this natural, innate love, that's going to wind you up here in Yetzirah after you pass before Mashiach comes, because it's more like an animal, right? It's instinctual, right? And whereas the Yetzirah in the heavenlies, this is the place where all the angels are. Angels are like animals, just like it says in Ezekiel 1 and Isaiah 6, right? So, an animal doesn't know necessarily anything, but it has an I don't want to say the wrong thing here, but in our relationship with God, our faith is higher than our logic, right? So because Chokhmah is the potentiality of what is, it's nothing to itself. It just wants to, the idea of Chokhmah is just to facilitate God's glory somehow, right? It doesn't think about the details at all. We live, our understanding brain is in the Bina realm, right? Where we're thinking about stuff constantly and trying to pour it over, and we're doing the equations and we're all this other stuff. Our relationship with God, where love and fear is really rooted, comes from a much higher place than that, which is pretty incredible, very impressive. So you could be the most ignorant of even sinful people, and still, when push comes to shove...
Illiterate, it even says.
Yeah, you could not even know how to read Hebrew. And when push comes to shove, if your Judaism is threatened, you're going to say, I'm a Jew like anybody else, right? A perfect example of this would be the Holocaust, most recently, right? In the Holocaust, millions and millions of our brothers and sisters were slaughtered mercilessly for being Jews, right? Just for being Jews. How many of them said, we're not Jews, let us run, right? A very, very small minority, right? And you could look throughout history, this has always been the case. Always been the case. If you tell, I heard a rabbi say this one time, and I just, may God help us, but I got a kick out of it. It's like, if you open the doors to the shul, to the synagogue, nobody wants to come in. If you chain the doors to the shul, everybody's breaking in to be able to get in there, right? So when your Judaism is threatened, how could your Judaism be threatened? We're going to learn that in the next couple of chapters here, so just give me an example. Someone says, here's a golden statue of Nebuchadnezzar or whoever.
Trying to make you bow down.
Yeah, kiss this statue or we're going to kill you. The most sinful of Jews is going to be like, I'm a Jew, right? I'm a Jew and I'm proud and I sing it out loud. So, that hidden love that was in him has now been revealed to such a fiery extent that he's willing to give up his life for that. And as the Alter Rebbe is going to go through in this orderly process of revealing the hidden love, if we can understand that any sin that we sin separates us from God in a total way, then we can have this hidden love activated at any time. Because we know it's not just kissing a golden statue that's going to kill us or separate us from God, but any sin separates us from God, whether it's the 365 negative mitzvot or the 248 positive mitzvot. Okay? So, therefore, even the most worthless of worthless and the transgressors of the Israelites in the majority of cases sacrifice their lives for the sanctity of God's name and suffer harsh torture rather than to deny the one God, although they be born in illiterate and ignorant of God's greatness. And just for reference here, when does Judaism, when does the Torah say that you should give up your life for the sanctity of God's name? If someone says, if you don't eat this bacon, I'm going to kill you, do we take the bullet as Jews?
Mm-mm.
No. What are the big three?
Idolatry.
Murder. And sexual immorality, right?
Oh, right.
Someone says, kiss this idol. Someone says, do some dirty stuff. Or someone says, kill this guy or I'm going to kill you. We take the bullet in those situations, and that's the rule. There's more to be said on that, but let's move on, I guess, here. For whatever little knowledge they do possess, they do not delve therein at all, right? It doesn't take a tzaddik to give his life for God, right? You don't need to know about all the Kabbalistic secrets and all of the mystical stuff and all of the Torah's remezim and midrashim. You don't need to know any of that to know, I'm a Jew, I don't do that, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not even processing logically. It's above logic. It's supra-rational. Whatever little knowledge they possess, they don't delve therein at all at this time. And so they do not give up their lives by reason of any kind of knowledge or contemplation of God. Rather, they do suffer martyrdom, chas v'sholem, without any knowledge and without any reflection. They're not comprehending anything at all, as if it were absolutely impossible to renounce the one God and without any reason or hesitation whatsoever. This is because the one God illuminates and animates the entire nefesh, which is the lowest part of our soul, through being clothed with its faculty of chokhmah, right? Chokhmah, as we said in our diagram, extends from the very highest all the way down to the very lowest, right? Like water, which is beyond any graspable or this chokhmah, right? God being enclosed in chokhmah is beyond any graspable and understood knowledge or intelligence, right? As we said, chokhmah is above understanding. It comes before understanding. You can't have understanding unless there's chokhmah first. And chokhmah is just potential. It is no substance of itself, which is why God can stand there. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's the end of chapter 18. What did we discuss? Pretty heavy stuff. It's the intro to a new section, so we hit a couple concepts. In the next following chapters, we're going to hit them again, more slowly, in more detail.
Good.
But give us a gist.
The candle.
The candle Jew is next. We love our candle Jew, so we'll be doing some drawing next week.
What was the question again?
What was the chapter about?
The hidden love in the heart of every Jew.
The hidden love in the heart of every Jew, which is an alternative way to do the mitzvot, to love and fear God by doing the mitzvot. It's an alternative way to do it, other than contemplation. We're saying for someone who can't or won't engage in this meditation, contemplation of God, you could just pull it right out of your heart, says the Alter Rebbe. It's an inheritance from our patriarchs. Mm-hmm. I just realized now we didn't give us our chapter title from our handy-dandy map of Tanya, so now's as good a time as any. Title of chapter 18 is Latent Love and the Potential for Self-Sacrifice. The short summary here, it says, even lowly souls possess, as a spiritual inheritance from the patriarchs, an innate love for God and the potential to give their lives for the sake of his oneness. Right? That's chapter 18. We're introducing the hidden love. Again, this section is going to go till chapter 25, and we're going to be talking about what is this hidden love? How do we know it's there? How do we prove it? And most importantly, how do we access it? So that we can do the mitzvot all the time. Right? So that we can be with God always. And that's really where we're going to start hitting when we hit chapter 24 and 25. Wanting to be with God always is really the root of that. Why is it when somebody is forced to kiss an idol that he's going to rather take a bullet than kiss the idol? Because some part inside of him, and it's not his understanding, right? It's his essence. It's deeper than understanding. It's more essential, more internal than understanding. Some part of him there, in this Pintali, the spark of his Judaism, is going to say, I don't want to be separated from God, even for a moment. And I'm going to fight to stay close to him, right? That's how you could tell that it's there. So if we can learn how to reveal it, even on smaller things that don't require self-sacrifice, because, I mean, clearly, it's way easier to put on tefillin than to take a bullet, right? So, put on the tefillin, right? And this is a method through which we can do it. What do we think? Questions? Thoughts? Concerns? Comments? Smoke signals? You want to throw rocks at me? No? That's a good day if I don't get a rock thrown at me. This is very good indeed. All right. At that, I suppose who would like to close us in prayer? I nominate you.
Rabbi, thank you for your Tanya, for teaching us to more understand you and how you created the world and the system that runs it. We ask that you open our hearts and our minds to hear and to understand more clearly each and every time we study, to know more and to know more of you. In Yeshua's name we pray.
Amen. Amen. Todah. Todah Rabbah. Please join us next week for chapter 19. You want to catch our camera? Yeah, thanks. Shalom. Litrot.